Mr. Man, you'll need to head to the back. This area is reserved for our business class travelers only. The cabin crew member's voice echoed through the aircraft as mobile phones began capturing the moment. David Williams glanced up from his tablet, his face expressionless. He dressed in worn denim, a jacket, and a black bag. Nothing about his appearance suggested wealth or influence. To the onlookers, he appeared to be just another traveler being informed he was out of place. The woman hovering above him, Emma Clark, tapped her device with growing impatience. "Sir, did you catch what I said? You're sitting in the incorrect section." David presented his boarding pass. C2A, business class. Emma's eyes sharpened. "There must be an error. May I see your identification?" Surrounding them, 15 passengers had their devices ready. Twitter user @AUSFlyer was already posting live updates about the confrontation. The departure screen above Gate 19 displayed red text, "Flight 298 to Melbourne. Final boarding in 34 minutes." Emma studied David's boarding pass as if examining counterfeit currency. Her colleague, Rachel, emerged from the galley. "Any problems?" Rachel spoke loudly enough for surrounding passengers to hear. "This gentleman appears confused regarding his seat allocation," Emma responded, her tone implying David was either dishonest or incompetent. David remained seated, securely fastened, satchel positioned by his feet. "Ma'am, I recognize there might be confusion. Could you please verify your system?" Emma's fingers moved rapidly across her tablet. She frowned, tapped again, then shook her head. "Sir, our records indicate you purchased an economy ticket. You must relocate to your proper seat, in economy class." "That's incorrect," David said calmly. He retrieved his mobile and displayed his digital boarding pass. "Business class seat 2A, purchased 4 weeks ago." An elderly gentleman in seat 3A leaned forward. "Son, perhaps you should locate your actual seat. No point creating difficulties." Emma nodded with approval. "Precisely, sir. Are you certain you didn't intend to book economy? These errors occur when people aren't familiar with the booking procedures." The condescension lingered in the atmosphere like smoke. David's jaw tensed almost invisibly. He reached into his bag and produced a gold airline membership card, placing it on the fold-down table. 380,000 kilometers flown with Southern Sky Airways, he stated. Gold status for 7 consecutive years. Emma barely acknowledged it. "Anyone can obtain those cards online nowadays, sir. I'll need you to collect your belongings and move to your designated seat." @AUSFlyer's fingers worked frantically across her phone screen. Asterisk live. Aboriginal passenger being systematically humiliated on Southern Sky Airways Flight 298. This is outrageous. Hashtag Southern Sky Discrimination asterisk. The tweet was shared 52 times within 3 minutes. Captain Leo Thompson emerged from the cockpit. At 48, he commanded authority through presence alone. His silver hair was impeccably styled, his uniform pressed to military standards. "What's the situation?" he inquired of Emma, not acknowledging David. "Passenger in wrong seat, refusing to move to economy, where he belongs." Thompson assessed David with a glance. Pullover jeans, trainers. His evaluation was immediate and incorrect. "Sir, you're delaying departure. I need you to take your correct seat immediately." David looked up calmly. "Captain, I'm in my correct seat. Business class 2A. Here's my boarding pass, my ID, and my frequent flyer card." Thompson didn't examine any of them. "Mate, I've been flying for 18 years. I know when someone's attempting to scam an upgrade. Emma, call ground security." The business class passengers shifted uncomfortably. A woman in 4B began recording with her phone. A businessman in 5A looked up from his laptop, frowning. David retrieved his phone and started recording. "For the record, it's 3:15 p.m., Flight 298. I'm being asked to vacate my paid business class seat despite having proper documentation." "Sir, put that phone away," Thompson commanded. "You're being disruptive." "I'm documenting discrimination," David replied steadily. Emma was already using her radio. "Ground control, we need security at Gate 19. Passenger refusing to comply with crew instructions." The gentleman in 3A shook his head. Just move to economy, mate. You're making this more difficult than necessary. But the woman in 4B spoke up. Wait, he showed you his boarding pass. Why aren't you checking it? Emma's face reddened. Ma'am, please don't interfere. This gentleman clearly purchased an economy ticket and is attempting to get a free upgrade. How do you know that? The woman pressed. Experience, Emma replied curtly. David made a phone call. The conversation was brief, his voice low. Yeah, I'm running behind. Start without me. I'll handle this personally. Thompson overheard. Handle what, sir? Who are you calling? David didn't answer. He was taking notes on his phone, documenting every word, every action. At AUS Flyers follower count jumped by 400 as her live stream gained traction. Comments flooded in. Asterisk, this is 2025. How is this still happening? Sue them. Record everything. Asterisk. The gate agent's voice echoed through the terminal. Final boarding call for Flight 298 to Melbourne. All remaining passengers please board immediately. 2 security officers approached. Steve Martinez, a 22-year veteran, and Jennifer Wong, no relation to David despite the shared Asian heritage. What's the problem? Martinez asked. Thompson pointed at David. Passenger in wrong seat, refusing to move, being disruptive. Martinez looked at the scene. A well-dressed man sitting calmly in business class, surrounded by crew members and passengers with phones out. Sir, can I see your boarding pass? David handed it over without protest. Martinez examined it carefully, compared it to David's ID, then looked at his radio. This shows business class C2A, Martinez said to Thompson. It's clearly fraudulent, Emma interjected. He's trying to scam an upgrade. Martinez looked at her skeptically. Ma'am, these boarding passes come directly from your system. How would it be fraudulent? Emma faltered. Well, these people know how to manipulate the system. The words hung in the air. Even passengers who hadn't been paying attention looked up. These people wasn't subtle. David remained perfectly still, but his eyes met Martinez's. The security officer had heard those words before, understood their meaning. Sir, Martinez said to David, would you mind stepping off the aircraft for a moment? Just to verify everything with the gate agent. It's a reasonable request, delivered respectfully. David nodded and stood. As he gathered his bag, his phone buzzed. A text message flashed briefly on the screen before he closed it. The woman in 4B caught a glimpse. Board meeting moved to conference room B. Emergency session. She frowned, wondering what kind of emergency board meeting an economy passenger would know about. The departure board now showed Flight 298 delayed 26 minutes. Ground Supervisor Janet Wilson arrived at Gate 19 with purposeful strides. She'd been with Southern Sky Airways for 14 years, worked her way up from baggage handler to supervisor. She prided herself on handling difficult situations. What's the hold-up? She asked. Passenger verification, Martinez replied, handing her David's documents. Janet examined everything with theatrical thoroughness. Boarding pass, ID, frequent flyer card. She looked from the documents to David, then back to the documents. Mr. Williams, these appear to be in order. However, given the crew's concerns about your behavior, I think it's best if we reseat you in economy for this flight. David's voice remained level. What behavior? I was sitting quietly in my assigned seat. You were being argumentative with the flight crew. I was providing documentation when they claimed I was in the wrong seat. Janet's expression hardened. Sir, arguing with me won't help your cause. You can take your assigned economy seat, or you can take the next flight. Those are your options. Back on the plane, at AUS Flyers live stream had exploded. The hashtag Southern Sky Discrimination hashtag was trending. Her viewer count hit 1,800 and climbing. Her commentary was running live. They've forced him off the plane now. This man has a business class ticket, showed multiple forms of ID, and they're treating him like a criminal. This is what discrimination looks like in 2025. Comments poured in faster than she could read them. Asterisk save this video as evidence. What's his name? He needs a lawyer. Southern Sky Airways stock is going to tank. Someone find out who this guy is. Asterisk. Inside the terminal. Other passengers from the flight had gathered to watch. Several were recording. A teenage girl was streaming on TikTok. A businessman was updating his LinkedIn feed. David looked at his watch. A habit, perhaps, but Janet noticed it was expensive. Very expensive. More than her monthly salary expensive. "Sir, I need your decision. Economy seat or next flight?" "May I speak with your regional manager?" David asked. Janet laughed. "The regional manager? Sir, I'm the senior supervisor on duty. I have full authority here." "I understand your position," David replied. "However, I'd like to escalate this to your regional manager. You can file a complaint online like everyone else." Several business class passengers had come out to watch. The woman from 4B, now identified as Dr. Susan Mitchell, stepped forward. "Excuse me, but I was on that plane." This man was sitting quietly in his seat. He showed his boarding pass, his ID, everything. Why exactly is he being removed? Janet turned to her. "Ma'am, this is between us and Mr. Williams. Please return to your seat." "I'm a paying customer too," Dr. Mitchell replied, "and I'm witnessing what appears to be discrimination." A businessman from business class joined her. "I saw the whole thing. The flight attendant never checked his documents properly. She just assumed he was in the wrong seat." Janet felt the situation slipping away from her. More passengers were gathering. Phones were everywhere. She needed to reassert control. "Sir," she said to David, "you can take the economy seat I'm offering, or you can leave the airport. Those are your only options." David pulled out his phone and made another call. This one lasted 52 seconds. His voice was too low for most people to hear, but Dr. Mitchell was close enough to catch fragments. "Urgency, board meeting, conference room now." Dr. Mitchell frowned. "Board meeting?" David ended the call and addressed the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this delay. I know you all want to get to Melbourne on time." His tone was different now, more authoritative. Several passengers noticed the change. Janet sensed something shifting. "Sir, who are you calling?" "My office," David replied simply. "Your office." David reached into his bag and withdrew a business card holder. He selected one card and handed it to Janet. She read it and her face went pale. "David Williams, Chief Executive Officer, Williams Group." The gathered passengers pressed closer, trying to see. Dr. Mitchell read over Janet's shoulder and gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered. The businessman from business class pulled out his phone and started Googling. His eyes widened as he read. "Bloody hell," he muttered. "Williams Group, they're worth billions." At AUS Flyer caught the exchange on her live stream. Wait. Did someone just say billions? Chat, what's happening? Who is Williams Group? Her viewers were already researching. Williams Group just announced a $2.8 billion revenue year. They own like 950 companies. This guy isn't just some random passenger. Southern Sky Airways is about to get sued into oblivion. Janet stared at the business card. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Mr. Williams, this doesn't change anything. You were being disruptive." But her voice lacked conviction now. David looked at his watch again. "In about 4 minutes, you're going to receive a call from your headquarters. I suggest you answer it." "What kind of call?" "The kind that comes from your board of directors." The crowd had grown to about 35 people. Airport security was trying to manage the situation, but the live streams were multiplying. #Southern Sky Discrimination had over 2,500 tweets now. Captain Thompson appeared, looking flustered. "What's going on out here? We need to depart." Martinez filled him in quietly. Thompson's expression changed as he listened. "CEO of what?" Thompson asked. "Williams Group," Martinez replied. "Major corporation, billions in revenue." Thompson looked at David with new eyes. The pullover and jeans didn't look so casual anymore. They looked like the outfit of someone who didn't need to impress anyone. Janet's radio crackled. "Supervisor Wilson, please contact headquarters immediately. Priority 1. She looked at David, who checked his watch again. "Right on schedule," he said quietly. Dr. Mitchell stepped closer to David. "Sir, I'm sorry this happened to you. This is completely unacceptable. Thank you, David replied. But this isn't about me anymore. What do you mean? David looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording everything, at the airport security trying to manage a situation that had grown beyond their control. This is about making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. At AUS Flyer's live stream viewer count hit 3,500. Major news outlets were starting to pick up the story. Southern Sky Airways' stock price, which had been stable all day, dropped by 1.4% in the last 20 minutes. Janet's radio crackled again. Supervisor Wilson, CEO Patricia Banks needs to speak with you immediately. Janet looked at David, then at the business card in her hand, then at the crowd of witnesses recording everything. This is about to get very interesting, Dr. Mitchell muttered to the businessman beside her. David opened his bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents that would change everything. Actually, he said to Janet, there's something else you should know. The crowd leaned in, sensing that whatever came next would be the moment everything changed. David's phone buzzed with a text. Board is assembled, awaiting your call. He looked up at Janet, at Captain Thompson, at Emma, who had joined them from the plane. Shall we discuss this inside? I think you're going to want privacy for this conversation. The gate area had transformed into an impromptu amphitheater. Passengers sat on chairs, stood against windows, and leaned against pillars. The live streams had multiplied. At AUS Flyer now had 4,500 viewers. For other passengers were streaming simultaneously. David stood calmly in the center, his bag open, documents arranged methodically on a nearby chair. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying easily across the space. I want to apologize for the delay. I know many of you have connections to make, families to see, business to conduct. Janet Wilson stood frozen, Patricia Banks's direct number displayed on her phone screen. She hadn't made the call yet. Before we resolve this situation, David continued, I think everyone deserves to understand what's really happening here. He pulled out a leather portfolio and opened it. The first document was a stock ownership certificate. 8 months ago, Williams Group acquired a 28% stake in Southern Sky Airways. The words hit the crowd like a physical force. Gasps, muttered curses, someone saying, "No way," loud enough for everyone to hear. Captain Thompson stepped forward. That's impossible. I would have heard about a major acquisition like that. David looked at him calmly. Captain Thompson, you've been with Southern Sky Airways for 18 years. Excellent safety record, by the way. I've reviewed your file. Thompson's face went white. You've reviewed my file. Williams Group reviews all key personnel files for companies in our investment portfolio. Standard due diligence. Emma Clark, who had been lurking at the edge of the crowd, suddenly understood the magnitude of what had just happened. She discriminated against someone who effectively owned nearly 30% of the airline. Dr. Mitchell was recording with her phone, but she lowered it slightly. Mr. Williams, are you saying you own part of Southern Sky Airways? 28%, David confirmed, which makes Williams Group the largest shareholder. He pulled out another document. Southern Sky Airways Fiscal Year 2024. Total revenue $9.1 billion. Williams Group investment $2.1 billion. The businessman from business class was frantically taking notes. This is incredible. This guy isn't just wealthy. He's one of the owners of the airline. At AUS Flyer stream was exploding with comments. Asterisk, he owns the airline. This is the best plot twist ever. Southern Sky Airways is so screwed. Someone's getting fired in real time. Asterisk. David reached into his bag again. There's more context you should have. He produced a thick folder labeled Southern Sky Airways Corporate Account Summary. Williams Group books approximately 920 flights per year with Southern Sky Airways. Our annual travel expenditure with this airline, $1.4 million. Janet finally found her voice. Mr. Williams, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, David interrupted gently. That's the point. A customer's treatment shouldn't depend on their net worth or their position. It should be consistent and respectful. He opened the folder and pulled out several pages. My personal account with Southern Sky Airways. Gold status for 7 consecutive years. 380,000 kilometers flown. Last year alone, I took 71 flights with this airline. Captain Thompson was staring at the documents like they might disappear if he blinked. Sir, we had no way of knowing. Captain, that's exactly the problem, David replied. You made assumptions based on my appearance. You never checked my credentials. You called security without verifying the facts. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Williams, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Clark, David said, consulting a document. 9 years with Southern Sky Airways. Generally positive performance reviews. 3 customer complaints in your file, all involving passengers of color. The implication hung in the air like a blade. Dr. Mitchell stepped closer. Mr. Williams, what happens now? David looked at his watch. In about 100 seconds, Janet's going to get another call from headquarters. Because right now, there's an emergency board meeting happening in Southern Sky Airways' headquarters. As if on cue, Janet's phone rang. The caller ID showed Patricia Banks, CEO. David nodded to her. You should take that. Put on speaker. Janet's hands were shaking as she answered. Ms. Banks. Janet, is David Williams with you? The CEO's voice was tense. Yes, ma'am. Put him on the phone now. David stepped forward. Hello, Patricia. David, I just got out of an emergency board meeting. What the hell is happening at Gate 19? The crowd pressed closer. This was better than any movie. Patricia, I'm on Flight 298 to Melbourne. I was denied service and removed from my paid business class seat due to what I can only characterize as racial discrimination. Silence on the other end of the call. Then, please tell me you're joking. I'm afraid not. The incident has been live-streamed by multiple passengers. It's trending on social media. Your stock is down 1.6% in the last hour. Jesus Christ. David pulled out his phone and showed the screen to the crowd. Multiple social media feeds were visible, all showing the hashtag Southern Sky Discrimination trending. Patricia, are you familiar with Section 14.2 of our shareholder agreement? Another pause. The Material Incident Clause. Correct. Discrimination against passengers constitutes a material incident that triggers a governance review. Dr. Mitchell whispered to the businessman. He's not just complaining. He's activating legal procedures. David. Patricia's voice came through the speaker. What do you need? First, I need your flight crew to understand that they've created a significant legal and public relations crisis for Southern Sky Airways. Captain Thompson was staring at the phone like it might explode. Second, I need immediate corrective action that demonstrates Southern Sky Airways' commitment to equal treatment of all passengers. Whatever you need. David looked around the crowd, at the phone still recording, at Janet's pale face, at Emma, who looked like she might faint. And third, Patricia, I need you to understand that this isn't about me. It's about the thousands of passengers who experience discrimination every year, but don't have the resources or platform to fight back. The crowd was silent now. Even the live stream comments had slowed as people absorbed what they were witnessing. David, I'm authorizing whatever actions you deem appropriate. Full authority. David nodded. Thank you. I'll have recommendations within the hour. He ended the call and looked around the gate area. 55 people were staring at him. Multiple live streams were broadcasting to thousands more. There's one more thing you should know, David said. He reached into his bag and pulled out a final document. This one was different, more official-looking, with multiple signatures and seals. Last year, Southern Sky Airways received an anonymous donation of $650,000 to fund diversity and inclusion training. He held up the document. The donation came from the Williams Foundation, my foundation. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Emma actually gasped out loud. I've been trying to help this airline improve its culture for over a year, David continued. Today, I experienced firsthand why that help is desperately needed. At AUS Flyer's voice came through her live stream. Chat, are you getting this? This man has been trying to help the airline, and they discriminated against him. This is unreal. David closed his bag with deliberate precision. Now, shall we discuss how to ensure this never happens again? Janet's phone rang again. This time it was the Southern Sky Airways legal department. The real work was about to begin. Conference Room B at Southern Sky Airways headquarters was normally used for quarterly reviews and budget meetings. Today, it had become the epicenter of a corporate crisis. Patricia Banks sat at the head of the mahogany table, surrounded by 9 board members, the company's legal team, and her senior vice presidents. The room's video wall displayed 3 feeds: the live stream from Gate 19, Southern Sky Airways' stock chart showing a steady decline, and a Twitter analytics dashboard tracking hashtag Southern Sky discrimination. "Patch Mr. Williams through to the main screen," Patricia ordered. David appeared on the 80-inch display, standing calmly in the gate area with Janet Wilson beside him. The crowd of passengers was still gathered, phones still recording. "David, you have the floor," Patricia said. David had positioned himself so the crowd could hear both sides of the conversation. This wasn't going to be a private settlement discussion. This was going to be transparency in real time. "Thank you, Patricia. Before we discuss solutions, I think the board needs to understand the full scope of what happened here." He gestured to Emma Clark, who had reluctantly joined the group at the gate podium. "Miss Clark, would you please tell the board what you said when you first approached me?" Emma's voice was barely audible. "I told you that section was for business class passengers only, despite the fact that you were holding a business class boarding pass." "Yes, and when I showed you my gold frequent flyer card, I said anyone could get those cards online." Board member Michaelchin leaned forward in Sydney. "Miss Clark, what made you assume Mr. Williams's documents were fraudulent?" The question hung in the air. Emma looked around desperately, seeking an escape from a truth everyone already knew. David answered for her. "I'll save Miss Clark the discomfort of answering. She made assumptions based on my appearance. An Aboriginal man in casual clothes couldn't possibly belong in business class." Patricia rubbed her temples. "David, what are your immediate demands?" "Let me present the facts first, then we'll discuss solutions." David pulled out his tablet and connected it to his phone's hotspot. Within seconds, he was sharing his screen with the conference room. Southern Sky Airways financial performance, Q4 2024. Total passengers, 52.1 million. Customer satisfaction rating, 3.1 out of 5. Industry average, 3.9. The board members were taking notes furiously. Discrimination complaints filed with the Australian Transport Safety Bureau against Southern Sky Airways in 2024, 163. That's 48% higher than the industry average. Patricia's face was grim. "David, we weren't aware the numbers were that high. Because your complaint resolution system is designed to discourage reporting, not encourage it." David pulled up another slide. Williams Group annual travel spending breakdown. Southern Sky Airways, $1.4 million. Qantas, $900,000. Virgin Australia, $750,000. The implications were clear. Southern Sky Airways was getting the largest share of a multi-million-dollar corporate travel budget. However, David continued, given today's incident, Williams Group will be reviewing all vendor relationships for alignment with our corporate values. Board member Sarah Rodriguez spoke up. "Mr. Williams, what would constitute appropriate resolution from your perspective?" David looked around the gate area, at the passengers still watching, at the live streams still broadcasting. First, immediate termination of all personnel involved in the discriminatory actions. Emma Clark's knees buckled slightly. Captain Thompson closed his eyes. Second, implementation of comprehensive bias training for all customer-facing staff within 35 days. Patricia nodded. Agreed. Third, establishment of an anonymous reporting system for discrimination incidents, managed by a third-party organization. Also agreed. Fourth, creation of a $650,000 fund dedicated to diversity and inclusion initiatives. The board members exchanged glances. $650,000 was significant, but not catastrophic. And fifth, David continued, A public apology from Southern Sky Airways acknowledging systemic failures in equal treatment of passengers. Patricia paused. David, a public apology could expose us to significant legal liability. Patricia, your current legal liability is already significant. There are approximately 4,500 people watching this conversation live. Your stock has dropped 2.3% in the last 2 hours. Your choice is between controlled transparency and uncontrolled crisis. Legal counsel whispered something in Patricia's ear. She nodded grimly. All conditions accepted, she announced. The crowd at the gate erupted in applause. At AUS Flyers' comment section exploded with celebration emojis. But David wasn't finished. There's one additional requirement, he said. The conference room fell silent. I want real-time implementation. Not promises, not future commitments. Changes implemented within 80 hours. That's impossible, protested VP of Operations Michelle Torres. Union agreements, legal reviews, system updates. David interrupted. Michelle, I've reviewed your operational capabilities. When weather emergencies require rapid schedule changes, you can reorganize your entire system in 7 hours. When you have the will, you have the way. Patricia leaned back in her chair. What specifically do you need in 80 hours? David pulled up another document on his tablet. Ms. Clark and Captain Thompson terminated within 28 hours. Replacement training materials developed and deployed within 52 hours. Anonymous reporting system operational within 80 hours. And if we can't meet that timeline? David looked directly into the camera. Then Williams Group will divest our Southern Sky Airways holdings and recommend that our network of partner companies do the same. The threat was devastating. Williams Group wasn't just a large investor. They were connected to dozens of other corporations that collectively represented millions in annual travel spending. Board member Jennifer Walsh asked, Mr. Williams, how do we know these changes will be sufficient? You don't, David replied, but you'll have quarterly reviews with independent auditors to track progress. Full transparency, public reporting. Patricia looked around the conference room. Her board members were nodding. The legal team was scribbling notes frantically. The stock price continued its decline. David, we accept all conditions. The crowd at the gate erupted again. Several passengers were wiping away tears. Dr. Mitchell was shaking her head in amazement. But David still wasn't done. There's one final element, he said. Personal accountability. Patricia's expression tightened. What do you mean? Executive compensation should be tied to diversity and inclusion metrics. Starting with your compensation, Patricia. The conference room went dead silent. 25% of executive bonuses tied to measurable improvements in equal treatment outcomes. Quarterly assessments, public reporting. Patricia stared at the screen for a long moment. Around the conference room, 9 board members waited for her response. Agreed, she said finally. David nodded. Then we have a framework for moving forward. He looked around the gate area one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize again for the delay. However, I hope you can see that sometimes delays serve a greater purpose. The crowd broke into sustained applause. Janet Wilson stepped forward. Mr. Williams, what happens now? David smiled for the first time since the incident began. Now, Janet, we fix the system, and we make sure every passenger is treated with dignity and respect. He looked back at the camera. Patricia, I'll expect the implementation timeline by email within 5 hours. You'll have it in 3, she replied. David closed his tablet and picked up his bag. Now, I believe Flight 298 was supposed to depart 48 minutes ago. Shall we get these passengers to Melbourne? The transformation was immediate. Janet was issuing instructions to her staff. Emma Clark was being escorted away by airport security. Captain Thompson was having her credentials reviewed by supervisors. A new flight crew was already being assembled. At AUS Flyer addressed a live stream audience. Chat, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. One man just changed an entire airline's policies in real time. As David finally boarded his flight in seat 2A, business class, Dr. Mitchell leaned over from 4B. Mr. Williams, that was incredible. How did you stay so calm through all of that? David settled into his seat and opened his laptop. Dr. Mitchell, anger is temporary. Systems change is permanent. I'd rather build something lasting than just vent frustration. The plane pushed back from the gate 57 minutes late, but it was carrying more than passengers to Melbourne. It was carrying the promise of change. 78 hours later, David Williams sat in his Melbourne office, reviewing implementation reports from Southern Sky Airways. His assistant, Maria Santos, had arranged the documents chronologically on his glass desk. The termination letters were executed yesterday, Maria reported. Emma Clark and Captain Thompson were dismissed with cause. Janet Wilson was demoted to training coordinator and will undergo mandatory sensitivity counseling. David nodded, reviewing the documentation. What about the replacement protocols? New crew training materials went live this morning. Every Southern Sky Airways employee will complete 10 hours of bias recognition training within the next 35 days. The anonymous reporting system launched at 7 a.m. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Southern Sky Airways stock rebounds after swift discrimination response. Shares up 3.8%. The market had responded positively to decisive action. Investors appreciated companies that addressed problems quickly rather than letting them fester. Patricia Banks had appeared on ABC News that morning, announcing the Dignity in Flight initiative. The interview had been watched 920,000 times in 7 hours. Mr. Williams's experience was unacceptable, she had said directly to the camera, but his response showed us how to turn a failure into an opportunity for meaningful change. The anonymous reporting system had already logged its first complaint, a passenger on Flight 634 reporting discriminatory treatment by ground staff in Perth. The complaint was being investigated by a third-party firm within hours, not weeks. David's computer chimed with an incoming video call. Patricia Banks appeared on screen, looking considerably more relaxed than she had 4 days ago. David, I wanted to give you the first quarterly report personally. She shared her screen, showing a comprehensive dashboard of metrics. Discrimination complaints down 72% in just 4 days. Customer satisfaction surveys show marked improvement. Most importantly, we've had 15 employees proactively report bias incidents they've witnessed. David leaned back in his chair. That's the real victory, Patricia, when employees feel empowered to speak up. The training program has been requested by 7 other airlines. We're licensing it through a nonprofit organization, with proceeds funding diversity scholarships. Excellent. What about the executive compensation metrics? Patricia smiled. Board approved unanimously. 25% of all executive bonuses now tied to diversity and inclusion outcomes. First quarterly review is next month. David pulled up his own metrics dashboard. Williams Group tracked their vendor relationships meticulously. Southern Sky Airways is back to being our preferred airline partner, he confirmed. Williams Group will increase our travel spending by 18% this quarter. That's wonderful news. David, I have to ask, how did you know exactly what levers to pull? David considered the question. Patricia, I've been discriminated against before, but I've also been in boardrooms for 22 years. I understand how corporations make decisions. The key is aligning moral imperatives with business incentives. The whole incident has become a case study at Melbourne Business School, Patricia mentioned. They're calling it stakeholder activism in real time. After ending the call, David walked to his office window overlooking Port Phillip Bay. The view reminded him why he loved Melbourne, a city built by immigrants and outsiders who refused to accept limitations. His phone rang. Dr. Susan Mitchell from Flight 298. Mr. Williams, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from your foundation's website. Not at all, Dr. Mitchell. How can I help you? I wanted to tell you that what you did inspired me to take action in my own workplace, Dr. Mitchell said. I'm head of emergency medicine at Royal Melbourne Hospital. We've had our own issues with bias and patient treatment. I presented your Southern Sky Airways case to our board last week. David smiled. What was their response? We're implementing a similar anonymous reporting system for bias incidents, and we're requiring all staff to complete unconscious bias training. Your approach, using data and systematic change rather than individual blame, it really resonated. That's exactly what needs to happen, David replied. One incident becomes a catalyst for broader change. The medical community is calling it the Williams Protocol, using documented discrimination incidents to drive institutional reform rather than just individual punishment. After Dr. Mitchell hung up, David reviewed the broader impact metrics his team had compiled. The hashtag Dignity in Flight had been used 52,000 times across social media platforms. But more importantly, it had spawned 15 copycat initiatives at other transportation companies. Greyhound Australia had announced their own bias training program. V/Line had hired a chief diversity officer. For major hotel chains had implemented anonymous reporting systems. His assistant brought in a stack of letters from passengers who had experienced similar discrimination. Each letter shared a story, thanked David for speaking up, and many included documentation of their own incidents. One letter stood out. It was from a young Indigenous woman named Angela Thompson, a recent MBA graduate. Mr. Williams, I was on Jetstar Flight 156 last month and experienced almost identical treatment to yours, but I didn't have your resources or platform. I just endured it and filed a complaint that went nowhere. Watching your live stream showed me that discrimination doesn't have to be accepted silently. I'm now working with the Human Rights Commission to document systematic bias in airline treatment. Thank you for showing that change is possible. David added Angela's letter to a growing file. Her case would become part of a larger class action lawsuit that would ultimately force industry-wide changes. The true measure of success wasn't just Southern Sky Airways' reforms. It was the ripple effect across an entire industry. For months later, the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications, and the Arts announced new federal guidelines requiring airlines to track and publicly report discrimination complaints. The regulations were nicknamed the Southern Sky Airways Rules after the incident that sparked them. David received a call from Transport Minister Sarah Chun. Mr. Williams, your Southern Sky Airways case provided the political momentum we needed to implement comprehensive anti-discrimination regulations. 7 major airlines have already adopted your recommended protocols voluntarily rather than wait for federal mandates. The Williams Foundation had expanded its focus to transportation equality, funding legal representation for passengers facing discrimination. In 7 months, they had supported 51 cases across airlines, bus companies, and rideshare services. David often reflected on the moment when Emma Clark first told him to move to the back of the plane. That single incident of discrimination had become a catalyst for systematic change affecting millions of travelers. But the most satisfying outcome was personal. Last month, David had flown Southern Sky Airways Flight 298 again, the same route, the same aircraft type. The flight attendant, a young Aboriginal man named Kevin, had welcomed him aboard with genuine respect. Mr. Williams, it's an honor to have you flying with us today. Is there anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable? David had looked around the business class cabin and noticed the diversity of passengers, different races, ages, clothing styles, all being treated with equal professionalism and respect. Kevin, you're already doing everything perfectly. That was the real victory, not the corporate policy changes or the media attention or the stock price recovery. It was the simple fact that the next passenger who looked like David, or didn't look like him, would be treated with dignity. The transformation was complete. The system had changed. Hashtag 2 years after Flight 298. David Williams stood at the podium of the National Gallery of Australia in Canberra, delivering the keynote address for the annual Transportation Equality Summit. The auditorium was packed with 900 attendees, airline executives, civil rights lawyers, government officials, and activists. But David could see beyond the crowd to the millions watching the live stream. Change doesn't require violence, he told the audience. It doesn't require lawsuits or protests or public shaming. It requires documentation, leverage, and systematic thinking. He clicked to his first slide, a graph showing discrimination complaints across all major Australian airlines. Since the Southern Sky Airways incident, airline discrimination complaints have dropped by 76% industry-wide. Not because discrimination disappeared overnight, but because airlines implemented systems to prevent it. The graph showed a dramatic decline, starting in late 2025, continuing through 2026 and into 2027. This is what happens when you change systems instead of just punishing individuals. The audience included Emma Clark, the former flight attendant who had triggered the entire incident. After her termination from Southern Sky Airways, she had undergone extensive bias training and now worked as a diversity consultant, helping other companies avoid the mistakes she had made. She raised her hand during the Q&A session. "Mr. Williams, I'm Emma Clark. I was the flight attendant on Flight 298. A murmur went through the crowd. This was unexpected. "Emma," David said warmly, "thank you for being here. I wanted to publicly apologize again, but more importantly, I wanted to thank you. Your response changed my life. I understand now how my unconscious biases hurt people. I've spent 2 years learning to be better." The crowd erupted in applause. This was the real power of systematic change. It could transform perpetrators into advocates. Emma, your courage in facing your mistakes and working to prevent others from making them is exactly what this movement needs. David clicked to his final slide, a photo of Angela Thompson, the young woman who had written to him after her own discrimination experience. Angela Thompson used documentation and legal advocacy to win a landmark settlement against Jetstar. That settlement funded bias training for 53,000 airline employees across the industry. The audience stood and applauded as Angela walked onto the stage. Angela's case proved that you don't need to be a CEO or a major shareholder to create change. You just need to be willing to document injustice and demand accountability. David looked directly into the live stream camera. These powerful stories remind us that change happens when ordinary people refuse to accept discrimination as normal, when we document injustice systematically, when we demand accountability from institutions, when we use our economic power strategically. He paused, letting the words sink in. Every person watching this has experienced unfair treatment or witnessed it happening to others. Your stories matter. Your documentation matters. The live stream chat was flowing with personal experiences, commitments to action, and expressions of gratitude. If you've witnessed discrimination in transportation, document it, record it, report it, share your real-life stories, because these Aboriginal stories and life stories become the foundation for systematic change. David concluded with a direct challenge. Don't just watch injustice happen. Don't just feel bad about it. Do something about it. Use the tools we've developed. Use the systems we've built. Help us create a world where everyone travels with dignity. The screen displayed the Transportation Equality Foundation's website and reporting tools. Share this video. Tell your friends about these resources. Subscribe to stay informed about our progress, because together we can ensure that what happened on Flight 298 was the last time, not just another time. The applause continued for 4 full minutes as the live stream viewer count hit 175,000. Change had become contagious,